Hey everyone, Roar the Fiend here. Today we're looking at Unova's champions. Yes, champions, plural, since there's essentially 3 of them. Gen 5 was breaking the mold with this one. I've got to say it's an appreciated shake-up to the formula. And as you'd expect, all 3 champions have full rosters of 6 Pokemon, so this should be fun to theorycraft. Especially as spoilers, they all have decently competent teams. In fact, because of that, this was the hardest rework I've ever done. My P-brain was struggling, so I'm hoping I've not missed the mark. And just so I'm clear, my goal for this video is to scale up their team's difficulty to a hypothetical hard mode. Not Kaiser levels, but a good amount of challenge for an experienced player. With that said, let's begin. N. Full name Neon Genesis Evangelion. Wait, I mean Natural Harmonia Gropius. That last name sounds like a Tropius variant you don't want to encounter. After defeating Unova's Elite Four, you return to the Elite Four's hub area, and now with the statue lit up in a blue hue, as you approach, it becomes an elevator taking you to the bottom of a grand, monolithic staircase. At the peak is a formidable temple, the Champion's Room. As you enter the Champion's Temple, you're greeted with Alder, in defeat at the hands of N, who's boasting the fact that he was carried by a legendary. It's all thanks to my friend Zekrom. Shameful, and then states, as a trainer who far outmatches the champion, I shall issue an order across Unova. Trainers of the world, free your Pokemon! He believes that humans inevitably will cause harm towards Pokemon, and this belief system was instilled within him by Ghetsis from a young age, by narrowing his experience of Pokemon to those who had been abused by humans. When you really stop and think about the implications of Ghetsis' master plan, he really is a sinister MFer. But for now, let's see how N's team measures up. In Pokemon Black, he leads with Zekrom at level 52 with Terra Volt, knowing Fusion Bolt, Zen Headbutt, Giga Impact, and Light Screen. Correct me if I'm wrong, but is this the first instance of an NPC using a legendary Pokemon against the player? Not including post-game content like the Battle Frontier. I mean, it's Zekrom, so its stats are amazing, typing is awesome, and Fusion Bolt is the gold standard for physical electric attacks. This is a powerful threat if you opt to not bring Reshiram into this battle, since right before fighting N, you fight the cover legendary. The game suggests you add them to your team before this fight, and I assume that's what most players would do. If so, then Reshiram will be forced into your lead slot. Thematically it's awesome, but will be a free knockout for the player as you have the super effective Dragon Breath conveniently in slot 1. If you're playing Pokemon White and instead uses Reshiram and you receive Zekrom, it's level 52 with Turbo Blaze knowing Fusion Flare, Extra Sensory, Hyper Beam and Reflect. Essentially an inverted moveset from Zekrom's. I'd say this is a bit harder as the player will be using Zekrom's lower special attack stat with Dragon Breath against Reshiram's superior special defense. But I mean, you'll still be fine. I'm not really complaining though, as I understand the symbolism of the player's truths or ideals trumping that of N's misguided or warped reality instilled by his father. It's a nice bit of showmanship before the fight truly begins. Second is Caracosta at level 50 with Sturdy, knowing Stone Edge, Waterfall, Aqua Jet and Crunch. Okay, so there's nothing inherently wrong with this addition. Sturdy working like a Focus Sash is great now. 2 strong stabs, random crunch coverage, and there's even a priority stab attack. Though, well, Caracosta's stat distribution is a little funky, but Sturdy sort of gives it a pass. I'm trying not to hate, just because it's not as cool as Acrobatics Archeops, but this does make me feel a little underwhelmed for a reason I'm kind of struggling to pinpoint. Third is Vanillix at level 50 with Ice Body, knowing Blizzard, Frost Breath, Flash Cannon and Hail. Right, this is even weirder. Sure, it's got a good base stat total and powerful blizzards, but activating Hail when every other team member takes damage from it is a weird strategy. And with its middling defenses and speed, and ice typing, I don't expect it to last long enough to justify setting up Hail anyway. Flash Cannon is about all it gets for coverage, which isn't great, as it's still walled by water, fire and steel types. And lastly, Frost Breath, it's niche, but I'd rather have Ice Beam 9 times out of 10. Did the devs give him Vanillix to re-enforce N's childhood being why he's like this today? Right after you see his childhood playroom, because ice cream is associated with kids? Though I'm probably just grasping at straws. Fourth is Archeops at level 50, with Defeatist, knowing Stone Edge, Acrobatics, Dragon Claw and Crunch. Okay, I really like this addition. Not just because it's the cooler fossil, but because it looks like this guy is waiting in the wings for when the player knocks out Reshiram or Zekrom, to then revenge KO the player's legendary, with its far better speed stat, absurd attack stat, and the move Dragon Claw. Aside from that, Archeops is just a terrifying Pokemon to go against, especially with its stab 110 base power acrobatics at its disposal. Of course, Defeatist holds this Pokemon back, but it should be able to get in some heavy hits before that happens. 5th is Zoroark at level 50 with Illusion, knowing Night Slash, Retaliate, Flamethrower and Focus Blast. A solid mixed attacker, backed up by its awesome ability. Illusion will disguise Zoroark as the 6th Pokemon in the party, but if N switched into that 6th Pokemon first and have it faint, then the ability won't activate. I'm sure some of you will have core memories of being tricked by this mon as a kid, and others not even realize what its ability did until later. Though considering what Pokemon it disguises as, I don't think it's put to amazing use. Still, Flamethrower is great for bug types, Focus Blast it's cool but inaccurate, Night Slash Stab is mid, and Retaliate, I guess it's okay for the first turn. I don't know, this moveset could have been made more interesting, trickier, deceiving-ier? Either way, I like this addition. Last out is Klinklang at level 50, with Plus, knowing Flash Cannon, Thunderbolt, Hyper Beam and Metal Sound. Ah yes, special Klinklang my beloved. Bro thinks he's Magnezone. I like Klinklang, it has a solid stat spread, and I mean its special attack isn't awful, but it begs the question why it isn't using its signature attack Gear Grind. Not using Shift Gear I at least understand, as it can't learn that until level 54, but still, apart from Metal Sound, all 3 of its other attacks are from TMs. It's interesting to note that this is the only Pokemon N uses more than once. Well, he uses a Klink when you fight him in Chargestone Cave. I'm not sure why the devs made this the only Pokemon lineage he uses more than once. Maybe it's secretly N's favourite Pokemon line? Also, this is who Zoroark disguises as. Both susceptible to a punch in the face, which doesn't make it ideal. Here's N's team. It's got a bit of strange energy to it. Maybe that's intentional? Some things I like, such as the legendary Showdown lead, with Archeops as a decisive revenge killer, and Zoroark's illusion as an idea is appreciated even if not implemented ideally. Caracosta is fine but doesn't do much for me. And lastly, Vanillix and Klinklang just are weirdos, one at least having some capacity for improvement. Also, wow, this team is really weak to fighting types. If it wasn't for Archeops with acrobatics, you could easily sweep him with a fighter. Or actually, Drain Punch Seismitoad is incredible here. With Earthquake and Surf, you could sweep his whole team. I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to rework this, but let's give it a go. In Pokemon Black, N still leads with Zekrom, now at level 54, with Terravolt holding the Magnet, knowing the same moves as before, and for Reshiram it's holding the Charcoal with the same moves. Honestly, I did consider mixing this lead up, but I like how choreographed it feels and didn't want to upset the balance of that. Though if the player doesn't use the other legendary, then it's still a bit tougher with the fusion attacks boosted by their respective held items. Second is Caracosta at level 52, with Sturdy holding a Nevermelt Ice, knowing Waterfall, Earthquake, Ice Beam and Shell Smash. I'm not Caracosta's biggest fan, but removing it would feel unfair if I kept Archeops. So spoilers, he does still have Archeops. For this turtle, I've opted to lean into the powerful Shell Smash strategy that is made more reliable thanks to its ability. I've gone for Earthquake over Stone Edge, since N's hard mode team's biggest weak point is electric, not fighting. Lastly, Special Attack and Ice Beam, coming from its not that much weaker special attack, can help against its quad weakness in grass. After Shell Smash, it'll hit hard, but with how low its base speed is, even at +2, it can find itself outpaced by faster Unova mons. Third is Archeops at 52, with Defeatist holding no item. It knows Acrobatics, Stone Edge, Dragon Claw, and U-Turn. All I've swapped is Crunch for U-Turn. This mon is already a very solid damage dealer with its stats and dual stab attacks, and I already mentioned Dragon Claw is great at revenge killing the player Zekrom or Reshiram should they win the 1v1. Fourth is Zoroark at level 52, creating an illusion, holding Black Glasses, knowing Night Daze, Flamethrower, Extra Sensory, and U-Turn. Its signature move isn't usually learned till level 64, but it is still legal at this level, and it just feels like the appropriate dart move of choice for this battle. It's 85 base power, 95% accurate with a nasty 40% chance to lower the opponent's accuracy. Boosted by the Black Glasses, I want its dark damage output to be potent. Of course, Flamethrower remains for excellent coverage, good against bug types, and Extra Sensory is good for the fighters. Lastly, U-Turn. Let's keep this switching momentum up that Archeops started, since it's a strat we otherwise rarely see from the AI. Fifth will now be Darmanitan at level 52 with Sheer Force, on a balloon, knowing Flare Blitz, Superpower, Rock Slide and U-Turn, with absurd attack and solid speed. We've all seen N Darmanitans when he was a kid in the intro, alongside Swoobat and Zorua, though the Zoroark N uses isn't the same Zorua from the intro. Same can be said with this Darmanitan, as the one you can catch in Black and White 2 has Zen mode. If N is to repeat using any Pokemon, one that's more strongly associated with him makes more sense to me than Klinklang anyway. I've gone for Air Balloon since, imagine Charcoal boosted Flare Blitz. That would be evil. So instead, a defensive held item is nifty, becoming temporarily immune to ground attacks. And U-Turn again is making an appearance. I just like the idea of N switching around a lot, with his faster Pokemon pulling off the strategy, hopefully before being hit. Lastly is Braviary at level 52. It's Defiant, holding a Wakanberry, knowing Brave Bird, Return, Rock Slide and Bulk Up. A new addition to his team, Braviary I feel is a perfect choice for this decisive battle for several reasons. First of all, I really want to incorporate an element seen in the sequels with Ghetsis' Hydreigon and Frustration. Yeah, as you'll see, no Frustration Hydreigon in the first game. Second off, Return displays N's genuine deep caring for Pokemon and their well-being, since it'll be maxed out at 102 base power. Third, its Pokedex in Black states they fight for their friends without any thought about danger to themselves. With N's lofty and noble goals, I could see him easily convincing Braviary to join the cause willingly. The Wakanberry has an electric attack. As stated earlier, his team's worst matchup is electric, so I've made sure to keep on top of that weak point. Overall, Braviary is thematically cool, with great stats, and for a normal flying type, it's pretty solid. Here's N's new team. Vanillix and Klinklang have been replaced by Braviary and Darmanitan, which for a final fight, given who N is, this feels more appropriate. His overwhelming fighting weakness isn't really noteworthy anymore, instead electric being the one to watch out for, but he can still hold his own against them. While his cover legendary hasn't changed all that much, the rest of his team have become far more threatening. To achieve his goals, he isn't going to hold anything back. Ghetsis. This man is irredeemable. A megalomaniac with a god complex, further emphasized with his theme being incredibly similar to Arceus' battle theme. He's abused N, fed him lies to mold him into the perfect figurehead of Team Plasma to further his goal, convince the people of Unova to release their Pokemon. And after everyone is separated from their Pokemon, there'd be nothing stopping him from ruling over Unova. Look, Ghetsis, good luck getting 100% of people to do anything. That's a near impossible ask. It'd be like me getting 100% of you watching to like this video. Am I right? I like this insidious approach to a villain, where they're masquerading as absolute morality and righteousness when underneath they're just, well, this. You fought N several times up till this point, but for Ghetsis, this is your single fight against him. So let's hope he puts up a real struggle, being the true final boss of Gen 5. He leads with Cough Egregious at level 52, with Mummy, knowing Shadow Ball, Psychic, Toxic and Protect. Ooh, okay Ghetsis. Leading with the bulky Toxic Stoller? Not a strategy you see too often from the NPCs. I like this mon a lot, it's very bulky and as far as monotypes go, Ghost is a good one. The downside to this lead is that it gets walled by Dark and Steel types. Also, I'd love something like Leftovers if we're going for a Toxic Stole strategy. Which, surprisingly, he actually does just that in Black and White too. Pop off Game Freak. Anyway, this lead is strong, but has a handful of real poor matchups. Second out is Disconian Tauros at level 52 with Reckless, knowing Head Charge, Wild Charge, Earthquake and Poison Jab. It's a bulky hard hitter with its solid HP stat to make those recoil moves not too painful to use. On top of that, Head Charge being a better double edge where you only take a quarter recoil, not a third, is nice. And Reckless powering that up to a whopping base 144 stab attack is terrifying. Wild Charge, sure, it's a bit of a meme, but again, Reckless brings that up to 108 base power, making it far more respectable coverage. Earthquake, obviously awesome for rock and steels, and lastly Poison Jab. It's not awful, but won't see much legitimate usage, as even against grass types, Head Charge will deal more damage, though at least no recoil and potential poisoning does give it a niche. Overall, big fan of this mon. It's a proper tank, and you know I love some normal type rep. Third is Seismitoad at level 52 with Swift Swim, knowing Muddy Water, Earthquake, Sludge Wave and Rain Dance. This getting a poison move I understand way more. Its only weakness, a quad weakness at that, is to grass types. And while Rain isn't super useful outside of Seismitoad, it's still better usage of Weather than N, doubling Seismitoad's speed with Swift Swim, making it far more likely to have a chance to actually capitalize on it. Also it increases Muddy Water's damage output, which I'd rather just use Surf, but it's thematic so I get it. Overall, a good addition. It's like a better Whiscash, which isn't saying much but still. Whiscash catching strays for no reason. Fourth is Bisharp at level 52 with Defiant, knowing Night Slash, Stone Edge, X-Scissor and Metal Burst. When I see Bisharp, I don't think of Metal Burst, but it's a level 1 move, so fair play. Just so we're all on the same page, it's like Counter and Miracle rolled into one attack that only deals 1.5 times damage in return, and has no decreased priority. You could outspeed and the move will just fail. A legit concern with Bisharp's mid, but not bad, 70 base speed. The rest of its moves are fairly standard. Stone Edge for fire types is nice, but having only resistant moves for fighting types, when that's your biggest weakness, is concerning. Overall, I don't dislike Bisharp, but I think it could be put to better use here. 5th is Electros at level 52, Levitating, knowing Wild Charge, Flamethrower, Acrobatics and Crunch. This definitely seems up Ghetsis' alley. A Pokemon with no weaknesses. On the surface, it sounds amazing. Competitively, not so much, but still, it's a cool mon, and the mixed attack and moveset offers a bunch of high-powered coverage. The only issues I see is potentially Rain Dance by Seismitoad nerfing Flamethrower, and Wild Charge with its recoil. Instead, I'd rather just go with Thunderbolt. It's still a solid addition that's only scared of facing off, I guess, against Moldbreaker, Earthquake, Haxorus. Hydreigon last at 54, Levitating, knowing Dragon Pulse, Fire Blast, Surf and Focus Blast. The first time the evil team boss is using a pseudo-legendary, with stats and moves that don't disappoint. Fire Blast is awesome coverage in general, but especially for a Dragon and Dark type, hitting Steel, Ice and Bug type super effectively. Focus Blast, I mean, it adds a few more super effective targets to strike down, but it's a risky move that I don't think is needed for Hydreigon. And Surf, honestly, it's okay. I don't think it's helping a whole bunch, but there's worse moves to fill the slot. That being said, Hydreigon should have been given a Dark Stab attack. It seems Electros stole Crunch from it when it wasn't looking. Here's Ghetsis' team. To me, it feels a lot more competent than Ends. A lot of hard hitters with great coverage. A commenter mentioned that Ghetsis' team is designed to counter Ends, and I wasn't so sure at first, but if you focus on his Hydreigon, it does have a super effective move for every one of Ends' Pokemon. With how I reworked Ends' team, I'll try to keep that in mind. Before getting into G-Dog's rework, I like the idea of turning this into a double battle. I'm imagining a cutscene where the player sends out one Pokemon, then Ghetsis sends out two, with an exclamation mark appearing above the player's head as they hastily bring out their second Pokemon. I want this to emphasize that Ghetsis is just a menace. He sees your one Pokemon and tries to gang up on it. So for his lead, it'll be Seismitoad at level 54, with Swift Swim holding a Rindo Berry, knowing Muddy Water, Earthquake, Sludge Bomb and Rain Dance. Basically the moveset as before, Muddy Water has a nice advantage over Surfing doubles as it doesn't target your teammate. Earthquake as well is a solid spread move option, and the only move change is Sludge Wave to Bomb. Wave targets both foes while Bomb is precise, and with no spread move damage penalty, letting it strike down grass types more effectively. Lastly, Rain Dance. I like the synergy it has with Swift Swim and Muddy Water, plus we can make it work with Ghetsis' other lead, which will be Electros at 54. Levitating, holding a Flying Gem, knowing Thunder, Rock Slide, Acrobatics and Thunder Wave. Unbothered by Earthquake. Rain Dance meaning Thunder can't miss. Thunder Wave to spread status, comboing with Rock Slide Power Flinching. And lastly, a powered up Acrobatics to really put the pressure on leading grass types. I also like Seismitoad as a lead, since with its Earthquake and the player likely to lead with Zekrom or Reshiram, it's a guaranteed super effective attack against them. I think these two Pokemon have decent synergy together. A little bit of setup is required, but I'm thinking they'll be able to exert some good pressure right off the bat. Third is Mandibuzz at 54, with Big Pecs holding a Silk Scarf, knowing Dark Pulse, Air Slash, Frustration and Tailwind. Mandy is meant to mirror End's Braviary here, and again I feel like it fits Ghetsis pretty well. The Pokédex states, watching from the sky. They swoop to strike weakened Pokemon on the ground. Now I'm gonna sound like a little smart-ass pretentious Poketuber, but this feels analogous to Ghetsis' whole plan. Weaken the Unovan region and rule the roost. While it has rather weak offense, the idea here is to Tailwind up, increase its decent base 80 speed to unparalleled levels, and use its flinching stab moves to net free turns for its ally. And lastly, Frustration. It's not a top tier addition, but thematically I wanted to increase its parallels to End's Braviary. Fourth is Bouffalant at level 54, with Reckless holding a red card, knowing Head Charge, Wild Charge, Rock Slide and Mega Horn. With Bouffalant's solid 95, 95, 95 bulk, and only one weakness, I figure this could be a good chance to try out a new Gen 5 held item, the Red Card. If Bouffalant survives an attack, the attacker will be forcefully switched into a random ally. Adding to the chaos of this fight and disrupting the player's positioning seems like an entertaining way to send them into a panic, just what Ghetsis would want. Fifth is Cough Egregious at level 54, with Mummy holding a Rocky Helmet, knowing Hex, Energy Ball, Will-O-Wisp and Destiny Bond. Still maintaining a tricky build, we've got a strong defensive wall that wants to spread status, and Hex for big damage. And with Destiny Bond, well, it won't be too nasty since it's so slow, but you'll need to be careful who you're targeting should it have used that move on the previous turn. Lastly, of course, is Hydreigon at level 56, Levitating, holding a Life Orb, knowing Draco Meteor, Focus Blast, Stone Edge and Surf. A reckless ace. At this point, Ghetsis isn't concerned with hurting his own teammates with Surf. After all, this is Hydreigon. How could it lose? Sporting powerful but inaccurate mixed coverage, it's got options no matter who it's facing. Oh, and we've maintained a super effective move for each of Ed's Pokemon. Drake and Meteor for the cover legendaries, Stone Edge for Braviary, Darmanitan and Archeops, Focus Blast for Caracosta and Zoroark, and Surf again for Darmanitan and Archeops. Here's Ghetsis' team. I think I'm being pretty mean here. Nuzlocke will have to be very careful on how they tackle this fight. I like the idea that his lead mons have good synergy together, but by the time Hydreigon comes out, Ghetsis is just going for the kill no matter the cost. With solid team, move and item diversity, I think it's going to be a truly terrifying final fight in this hypothetical hard mode. Unova's true champion, and this game's super boss, Alder. He's encountered a few times throughout the player's journey, wandering throughout Unova and assisting in stopping Team Plasma. His partner Pokemon died due to an illness sometime in his past. The grief he feels over not being able to save it is what started his nomadic journey. And it's not revealed in black and white, but in the sequels you do find out the Pokemon that passed away was Volcarona. You can see how this has had an impact on his philosophy through his dialogue. He never really shows any sorrow, but instead, it seems he travels the region to bring people and Pokemon closer together, emphasizing that strength isn't everything, that there are also people who are happy just being with Pokemon. Honestly, I gotta respect the man. Hopefully as the super boss, I can respect his team as well. He leaves with Excelgor at 75 with Hydration, knowing Bug Buzz, Energy Ball, Focus Blast and Me First. We have an incredibly fast, frail special attacker. Energy Ball and Focus Blast is handy for rock types at least, but against fire and flying types, it's not looking great. Me First is a pretty fun but niche move. If you're faster than your opponent, you get to use their move first, and it receives a 50% power boost and can't miss, which sounds awesome. It has the potential for funny moments, but it seems more likely to Me First a resisted Fire Blast from, say, Emboar, or Stone Edge against Gigalith with its underwhelming base 70 attack stat. I love the move in theory, but in practice, there's some issues. Second is Buffalon at 75 with Sap Sipper, knowing Head Charge, Mega Horn, Stone Edge and Earthquake. I like Ghetsis and Buffalon, but Alder's, it's got 4 strong moves, I'm not complaining. It's bulky and powerful as well, but I'd say Sap Sipper is overkill here. His 5 other team members resist grass and the 6 is an ice type. I mean, maybe it's commentary on how Alder is so in tune with nature, with all that traveling he's done, that grass heals him. If that's the reasoning, then cool. But team comp wise, Reckless would be preferred. Third is Druddigon at 75 with Rough Skin, knowing Outrage, Superpower, Night Slash and Payback. An interesting pick, Druddigon offers high offense and decentish bulk. Not too dissimilar from Buffalon. Stab Outrage is always a threat, and Superpower is solid for Steel and Ice types. Payback works perfectly on a mon as slow as this, near guaranteeing it'll be 100 base power every use. And lastly, Night Slash is kind of redundant with the aforementioned Payback. Overall, decent addition that could use fine tuning. Fourth is Vanillix at 75 with Ice Body, knowing Blizzard, Flash Cannon, Acid Armor and Light Screen. Why is Game Freak giving these endgame bosses Vanillixes? N and Alder with Vanillix, Ghetsis and Alder with a Buffalon. I guess technically there's nothing wrong with this, but it does feel a bit odd, especially because Vanillix really ain't all that. Poor coverage, Blizzard short, strong, but why are you using a 5 PP move if your goal is to set up both defenses and ideally live for a long time? It gets mogged by any water, steel or fire types, so the best I'm hoping for here is Light Screen set up before it's knocked out. Jousting onto the field next is Escavalier at level 75 with Swarm, knowing X-Scissor, Iron Head, Air Lace and Giga Impact. I'd argue this is the stronger counterpart to Excelgor. It's got an awesome Bug Steel typing with a great stat distribution. Its stab attacks are fairly standard. Air Release for coverage, I mean most fighting types just take as much from Iron Head. And if you're fighting an Emboar, you're dead either way. Lastly, Giga Impact. I don't actually hate it. It's a half decent way to damage fire types, though lack of stab and recharge turn makes me feel kinda iffy on it. His ace is Volcarona at 77 with Flame Body, with Overheat, Bug Buzz, Hyper Beam and Quiver Dance. It's Volcarona. The BST and stat spread are immaculate. We all know how strong Volt can be, especially with Quiver Dance. It seems Game Freak wanted to keep it in check with Overheat and Hyper Beam, but still, those are 2 incredibly powerful attacks, so it should be able to leave its mark against the player's team before being knocked out. It's a strong ace with a cool typing, and I absolutely love Volk, so I'll have to not let my bias overdo it when reworking this bug. Here's Alder's team. Half bug type specialist, half multi-type specialist. I kinda like that. He's got a preference, but it doesn't define his whole character, unlike 99% of people in the Pokemon world. The team's got some pretty noticeable weak points, like Fire and Rock. Druddigon and Buffalon are trying to do some heavy lifting to counteract those weaknesses, but it's not quite where I'd want it to be at. So let's see what we can do to give his team that push needed to truly feel like the post-game super boss of a hypothetical hard mode. His lead will still be Excelgor at level 75 with Sticky Hold, holding a Life Orb, knowing Bug Buzz, Focus Blast, Rain Dance, and Spikes. Okay, so I admit, I don't think Excelgor is great here, but it feels kind of wrong to remove it when it's seldom seen elsewhere. So let's lean into its fast and frail nature by boosting its damage output with Life Orb, and a quick Rain Dance to half its and the other bug types' fear of fire attacks. Lastly, Spikes. I enjoy using Stealth Rocks, but more rarely have I employed the Spikes hazard lead. While not likely to set up more than one layer, it's still a burden for the player taking an 8th chip every time they switch around. Second is Dredagon at 75 with Rough Skin holding an Expert Belt, knowing Outrage, Earthquake, Rock Slide, and Glare. The Resident Fire counter that also deals with rocks and flying types, countering bugs' worst matchups, and dragons as well, dealing with steels and ice types. It's not too flashy, but I don't think it needs to be, with the Expert Belt further emphasizing its intended role. Third, let's go Escav at 75 with Shell Armor, holding a normal gem, and it knows Iron Head, Mega Horn, Giga Impact, and Reversal. I was mulling over this moveset for a while. I was considering Sword Stance or even Screech, maybe Counter, but honestly I think it's best used with 4 attacks, 2 strong stabs replacing X Scissor for Mega Horn, Giga Impact now can deal a Devastating Strike with a normal gem, and I've replaced Airlace for Reversal, just in case it can get high powered attack off. Honestly, these changes I'm not exactly content with, but Escav's limitations are quite noticeable when you look over all of its options, so at least it can put his 135 base power attack to good use. Now, for his 4th and 5th Pokemon, I wanted to do something a little quirky. Alder being a traveller of Unova, he'll have experienced firsthand the diverse climate and the changing of the seasons that Unova brings. So I thought it'd be a nice touch to have his team lineup change based on the season, to showcase his adaptability. This is something N actually does in Black and White too. For example, here's his summer team. Solar Beam Ninjask. Okay, pop off King I guess. Anyway, for Alder, his spring team variation will include a Whimsicott at 75 with Prankster, holding a Big Root, knowing Giga Drain, Hurricane, Fake Tears, and Leech Seed. Rainy and windy spring, I think Whimsicott does a good job representing that. The Big Root complements Giga Drain and Leech Seed, healing hearty chunks of health each time they're used, with Hurricane again being thematic and worthwhile coverage, especially if Excelgor's Rain Dance is active. Lastly, Fake Tears. Bit of a slot filler, but does mean if it's used turn 1, that turn 2 can be spent dealing massive damage with Giga Drain and recovering back to a healthy amount. 5th out will be Seismitoad at 75 with Swiss Swim, holding a Poison Barb, knowing Muddy Water, Earth Power, Sludge Wave, and Rain Dance. Honestly, pretty similar to Ghetsis to Seismitoad. What I said there can pretty much apply here. The moves were picked with spring in mind, like Muddy Water over Surf. We're going for that theming bonus. But what about if you're facing Alder in summer? Then 4th he'd be using a Lilligant with Own Tempo, holding a Miracle Seed, knowing Petal Dance, Quiver Dance, Sleep Powder, and Leech Seed. I'm taking a page out of Gardenia's book. Mono Grass offense pushed to its limit. 144 base power Petal Dances, thanks to the Miracle Seed, with Stab making it 216 base power, coming from its base 110 special attack. That with Quiver Dance, and of course Own Tempo means it doesn't even confuse itself after the 2 to 3 turns. Means sure, Grass is resisted by a lot of types, but it could brute force anything if it has enough time to set up. 5th will be, and don't laugh at me for this one, Simisear. At 75 with Blaze holding a Fire Gem, knowing Overheat, Acrobatics, Rock Slide, and Grass Knot. Fellas, is 100 offenses and speed really that bad? The coverage is great as well. So enough of the bias, this is a good addition. Fire Gem Overheat will certainly quell the haters, and while Grass Knot deals with Fire's weaknesses, once it loses special attack potency, it has 110 base power Acrobatics and 75 base power Rock Slide Flinching. Besides, the other fire types of this region didn't quite fit the theme of summer quite as nicely as Simisear did in my mind. So come on guys, let's give it those 5 minutes of fame that it won't receive anywhere else. If you're fighting Alder in autumn, then 4th will be a Gigalith at 75 with Sturdy, holding a Rocky Helmet, knowing Stone Edge, Earthquake, Explosion, and Stealth Rock. Oh yes, autumn players have the luxury of potentially 2 hazard setters, Spikes and Stealth Rocks. It's Gigalith so its offenses are no joke. Stone Edge and Earthquake will beat back fire types, and even a nerfed Explosion should be able to knock out many Pokemon that are neutral to it. 5th will be Crustle at 75 with Sturdy, holding a Hard Stone, knowing Rock Wrecker, X Scissor, Earthquake, and Shell Smash. 3 attack Shell Smash. And Crustle is a cool mon that I feel goes a bit underappreciated. I always find it funny how this type combo means it only resists Poison and Normal, but hey ho. Shell Smash with Rock Wrecker may be a bit overkill, especially with that Hard Stone, but it's all about presentation. I don't care what you're switching to, unless it's like a Ferrothorn, you will lose a mon. Lastly, fighting him in winter, it's not Vanillix, because F you Vanillix, but Cryogonal at 75, with Levitate holding a Light Clay, knowing Ice Beam, Flash Cannon, Sheer Cold, and Reflect. In my opinion, Cryo is better than Vanillix, though coverage is basically the same. A fast shear colder means it can threaten anything while its PP holds up. Yes, that's the wording I'm going for. And lastly, with a fast reflect and light clay, it patches up its poor defense and assists the team once it goes down. Fifth would be Sawsbuck, with its winter coat at 75, with chlorophyll, holding an Occa Berry, knowing Horn Leech, Double Edge, Wild Charge, and Swords Dance. Okay, his winter team unsurprisingly gets wrecked by fire types, so the least I can do is give it an Oran Berry. Swords Dancing into a Double Edge might not be ideal, but may just do the trick against fire Pokemon. And Wild Charge, again, not ideal coverage, but is a nice option against flying types. And well, it's one of its better options to deal with Chandelure. And after all of those season team variations, let's cover his Volcarona. At level 77 with Flame Body holding a Charty Berry. And those Fire Blast, Psychic, Bug Buzz, and Quiver Dance. After all that waiting, maybe it's a little anticlimactic for his ace, but it's simply 3 good attacks and Quiver Dance, with the Charty Berry halving a rock type attack. Maybe if it's lucky, letting it live a single rock hit. The big upgrade really is no overheat debuffing or Hyper Beam recharging, minimizing the downtime it has every other turn. The player definitely won't be able to muck around against this ace, as it'll be showcasing just why it's not like the other bugs. Here's Alder's team. I had a tough time reworking this guy. His original team had serious flaws that still can be visible in the rework, though with improvements to his poor matchups, especially in seasons like Autumn, he's definitely tougher than before, with a lot more replayability, that I feel reflects accurately to his character, since at the end of the day, I don't want to just focus on making them tougher, but try to make these fights feel more flavorful and in character when reasonable. And that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. I love Gen 5, so it was a blast theory crafting for them. In fact, I plan on doing a challenge run in Gen 5 some point soon, so keep a lookout for that. Anyway, we'll cover Black and White 2 before too long, and those games have official difficulty options, so my approach may end up being a little bit different than usual when we cover those games. For now though, that's all from me, and I hope you all have a good day. See ya!